We've looked at the anatomy of the leg, the bones and muscles and tendons. Now we're going to consider the leg in motion. And first we need some definitions. When the foot is in the air, so coming forwards, it comes forwards, it stops, it comes back down, it hits the ground. That's the beginning of the stance or weight-bearing phase. The animal then passes over the leg effectively comes backwards and then off the ground. As soon as it breaks over, and break over itself is quite important, as soon as it breaks over and leaves the ground, that's the end of the stance. So the stance is from hitting the ground to leaving the ground. And we talk about concussive forces that act on the foot during the stance, but if we break the stance down into stages, and that's about what we're about to do, is talk about different phases or stages of the stance. The leg is coming forwards, and as it's coming forwards, the wrist is bent. This is obviously just the front leg, and the fingers are curled, obviously the single finger. The leg comes forwards, straightens out, so it's really nice and straight before it comes down onto the ground. And I'll just curl so you can see one toe coming down. The foot comes down, impacts with the ground. So there's about a 5 to 10 1,000ths of a second moment of contact with the ground. And that's called, I'm going to call that impact, and that's stage 1 of the stance phase. Once that foot makes contact with the ground, it no longer, and is firmly planted, after a few thousandths of a second, it's firmly planted, depending on the surface. At that point, the foot's not moving. The foot's not going anywhere, it's anchored. But the body above the foot is still moving. So the leg, or the body and the leg effectively crash into that foot and tend to drive it forwards. So there's a potential period of slide and then stop. And again, the surface, as we'll see, affects that. So that slide and stop phase is either called secondary impact or the slide and stop phase of the stance. Right? So that's stage 2. Once the foot is firmly anchored, even before it gets firmly anchored, weight is coming down the leg and is tending to bend the fetlock. And here's my fetlock, and you see I'm trying to bend it just like a horse's fetlock. And that's simply because of the weight on the leg. As the horse goes over the leg, effectively dragging the leg backwards, anchored to the ground. At mid-stance, the leg is pretty much vertical, and that's when there's maximum downwards force on the fetlock. That's when you get the maximum angle of the fetlock, and that's the place where the forces on the leg are highest. As the leg goes over, the force tends to reduce slowly, so this is the point when all the elastic energy stored in the tendons on the back of the leg, they start helping to catapult the horse upwards and forwards and allow the foot to break over and then come off the ground. So our stages are impact, slide and stop, mid-stance, and break over and foot off. And those are the stages of the stance we're going to look at in more detail in subsequent videos.